Barbara Jungbauer has been a lifelong Toastmaster. Just like everybody else, life has forced Barbara to leave our club from time to time. Yet she always comes back like a bouncing ball. Barbara works for the Veterans Administration, VA, where Barbara holds the best job in the world. I want that job, Barb. We need to have a talk. And Barbara helps veterans every day. She is a disabled veteran herself. And we salute you, Barb. Barbara lives in St. Paul, Minnesota, with her beautiful dog, Angus, and her beautiful cat, Kiko, and her handsome husband, David. Not necessarily in that order, according to Barb. Barbara hates Minnesota winter. Can you believe that? Barbara's today's speech is titled Against All Odds. She is speaking from Engaging Humor, Level 3, Project Number 1. Engage your audience with humor, 5 to 7 minutes, against all odds. Can I get your help to welcome our speaker, Barbara Jungbauer? Welcome, Barb.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And thank you to all of our honored guests. Saturday Morning Live is always the most fun. And you know what, Mr. Toastmaster? You have helped me set up my speech of Against All Odds, a story of how opposites attract, because yes, I am like a bouncing ball, where my husband David is not a bouncing ball. We celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary 2 weeks ago. And I've had at least a dozen people ask me since then, what is the secret to such a long marriage? I don't know. I have no advice for you. I can't fathom how it is that against all odds, the two opposites of David Jungbauer and Barbara Jungbauer have stayed together. Today, I'm going to share with you how we met, how we got together, and how I think we have clung to our life together. It hasn't been easy, but it hasn't been that hard because he is the best person in the universe. We met at RAF Lakenheath in England. We were both in the Air Force. And I was a bouncing ball who ended up working for one of the most stable, supportive, mature men in the world. And I was immediately in love, but wouldn't face it because I wasn't going to be that moron from a Harlequin romance in love with my boss. And he never said a word because he said he didn't want to be that creepy old man who was perving on his airmen. So we worked together for a year and a half and never said a word, never acted in any way but the most professional. And the day that we said goodbye in England, my mother had died. And I had to go back to Ohio for the funeral. And my boss, the most wonderful man in the world, took me to the train station to put me on a train to go to Heathrow to fly home for the funeral. And the last thing he did was he put $100 bill in my hand and said, "You're an airman. You're broke. I know you have no money. Use this for food and go home." And I didn't see him again for a year and a half. And when I left England and I was going to Las Vegas for my next assignment, I swung by New Mexico, where he was stationed. And I showed up at the front gate and asked them to please find out the work number for Master Sergeant Jungbauer. I wanted to visit. And so they gave me the number and I called and he answered the phone. I said, "I know you don't know who this is." And his response was, "How could I forget that voice?" And in 2 minutes, he was at that gate. And we spent a wonderful weekend together where I got the bedroom and he slept on the couch because he was the total gentleman. And opposites attract, people. I was a bouncing ball and he was Mr. Stability. He has a great sense of humor, but not about a lot of things. And I convinced him to go up and take this picture at one of those wonderful souvenir places. Look at that cute man. Look at that goofy looking chick. But the opposites attract. I went off to Las Vegas and I was working there, and he retired from the Air Force and moved to California. And I would call him on the weekends, or he would call me, and he would tell me about these women that he was dating. And I would tell him about the morons I was dating. And one weekend we were talking on the phone. I was telling about the particular moron I'd gone out with the night before. And he told me about the woman that he'd gone out with the night before. And we just laughed and we hung up and I went out to work, and I was out on the back of an airplane working when my boss came running up. "Carrie, phone call." And I'm like, oh my gosh. My boss came out in such a panic. Oh my God, I thought someone was dead. So I went running into the building and I picked up the phone, "Herman Carrie." And it was David. And he said to me, "Why are we dating morons? You should marry me." And I said, "You're right, I should marry you." And we laughed and hung up. And about 3 seconds later, the phone rang again. And he said, "Were you serious?" And I said, "Well, I'm serious. If you were serious." And he said, "Well, I'm serious." I said, "Okay, well, I'm serious." And so we got married. And look how cute we are. Oh my gosh, everybody should be that cute. Opposites attract. And we've stayed together against all the odds. For our first wedding anniversary, the paper anniversary, we both gave each other copies of Yeager's autographed biography. He's stable, responsible, sedate sometimes, and I'm still that bouncing ball. How did we stay together? I don't know. I don't know. We have different priorities in life, different things we think are important. I remember the first time when we lived together, because our first 2 years of marriage, we were apart. He was living in California working, and I was stationed in Nevada. But when we started living together after 2 years, the first weekend, I'm cleaning the bathroom, and he came up and he leaned against the door jamb and he said, "Are we moving?" I'm scrubbing the toilet. And I looked at him, I said, what are we moving? He said, "Well, you're cleaning the bathroom." I said, "I do this every Saturday." He goes, "Oh." And he turned around and walked away. I should have taken this. It should have alerted me that there might be an issue in coming years. And the issue is, the only place I'd ever been with the man before was in his car, and his car was always immaculate. So I thought he was immaculate. No, his car is always immaculate. His house is a wreck, where I could care less about my car, but I like my house to be cleaned. But opposites attract. Somehow I managed to ignore the 2 inches of man dust on top of everything. That I can clean the house and it's clean for approximately 15 minutes until he deposits things places. But I love him. He's stable and he's funny and he's mature and he calms me down. and he takes excellent care of me. I hope I take excellent care of him. When I went back to college and I was working full time and going to school full time, he said to me every morning, get up. You have to go to library. Get up. You have to go to work. Get up. You have class in an hour. He took care of me to make sure that I got things done, and he made our lives happen. This morning I told him, get up. You have to go and get your COVID-19 shot. So we're opposites, and I don't know why we stay together. We're nothing alike. I'm the bouncing ball. He's Mr. Stability. But I can tell you one thing. I love him, and he loves me. And I'm going to stay with him for another 35 years, if he'll let me. Mr. Toastmaster.